So after watching Jesus get brutally murdered, I'm not sure if the apostles knew exactly what was going to come next, because this was going to change the paradigm of history forever. You know, they seen him cast out devils. They seen him heal the sick. You know, they even seen him raise the dead with Lazarus. But those words that he said, destroy this temple, in 3 days, I'll raise it up again. You know, it almost starts to take new shape in their minds. Even that early morning of them figuring out that he's risen. I imagine that they are thinking about every word and every deed he did. It just starts to make sense now. Everything he said, everything he did, up to him dying, up to his last words on the cross. Tetelestei. It's finished. It's finished. Those words are just vibrating in their inner core. It's finished. He's risen. It's finished. And the more they think about it, the more nervous, the more excited, the more there's a lot of emotions going on at that time. You know, and it kind of makes you think, why did Jesus choose that word, Tetelestei? Now, I love that word because it's a common word in the Greek language. There was a lot of usages for that word, Tetelestei. And basically, it means any agreement has been settled or finished, has been completed. There's a lot of ways that you can use it. The first way I think about is when the master gives a servant a task and a servant goes out and they do whatever their master told them. They do it with a willful spirit and they rush back to tell their master, Tetelestei, to say, Master, everything that you told me to do, I did it. Jesus was the servant saying, Father, everything that you sent me here to do, I did. You know, the next way it's used is when it's a financial term. So if you have a debt, you know, that you owed, whether to the government or you had a debt to pay off your house or you had just any personal debt, you'd pay off your debt and then you'd run throughout the city and you'd say, Tetelestei, to say that I don't owe anything. All my debt has been cleared. Everything has been paid for. Jesus taken on all of our debt. He took on the debt of sin and he paid it all as he hung there saying, the debt of sin has been paid with my life. Tetelestei. The next way is a legal term. If you had a prisoner who had a sentence and they basically did their time and the judge looked over, you know, and the penalty has been paid, the judge would get a big red stamp and he'd stamp the paper and he'd say, Tetelestei, to say, you're a free man. The debt, your debt to society has been paid. You can walk away free. You're no longer guilty. Jesus taking on all of our sin on the cross has took on our personal sin and has paid the debt so that we no longer have to pay that price with our lives. We are free now. The next illustration of how it's used is when an artist, when they have a masterpiece and when they're working and they're putting the final touches on their masterpiece. And when they put the last finishing touches on their masterpiece, they stop and they look. And he says, it's finished. Tetelestei, meaning that there's no more work to be done. This masterpiece is finished. Every detail is included. And we can see that Jesus fulfilled every single prophecy. His life mirrored the Old Testament. Everything led up to Jesus. The masterpiece is complete. Now, the last way they use it is when a priest will make a sacrifice in the temple. And after the sacrifice of the lamb, the priest will yell, Tetelestei, meaning the sacrifice is complete. Jesus hanging on the cross, taking on the sins of the world, the lamb that was slain. His last moment in victory says Tetelestei, the lamb has been slain. The sacrifice was perfect. And it's such a powerful thing because when Jesus declares that in victory, we also get to share that chant in victory as well. We can also now say, Tetelestei, it's finished. Everything that Jesus did for us on the cross, we now become heirs of that promise because of his death. Christ the Savior died so that we might have life and have it more abundantly. Death no longer has a hold over us. If death didn't hold Jesus, we now share that part that death can no longer hold us. It probably felt too good to be true when they seen Jesus. Everything that they thought that they had lost was instantly restored. The same joy, the same hope, the same comfort that they felt seeing Jesus resurrected is the same joy and hope and comfort that we get to have because he's alive. Jesus now holds the keys of death, hell, and the grave. O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? Tetelestei, it's finished because Jesus is alive.